Zombeavers is a horror comedy film released by Freestyle Releasing on April 19th, 2014. The film was written by Al Kaplan and John Kaplan, as well as Jordan Rubin, who would direct the film. The film stars Rachel Melvin, Hutch Dano, Courtney Palm, Lexi Atkins, and Bill Burr. There really isn't a whole lot to be said about this particular title. It's another one of those so bad it's good flicks whose crowning achievements rest on the use of celebrity stunt casting, an over-enthusiastic demonstration of the workings of anatomical baseball, and a title punny enough to make every dad in a 2-mile radius blush. As much as people are usually justified in their reservations of, if you've seen one B movie, you've seen them all, this often leads to people overlooking diamonds in the rough. Whether it be genuine quality in films like The Evil Dead, or doubled down craziness like in Sharknado. So for a concept as ridiculous as this one, you gotta ask, what kind of ride are you in for? And is it worth the price of admission? In this review, we're going to attempt to keep pace with the drunken debauchery on screen, while also trying to make sense of the other things that may pop up on said screen. Just as a warning to those of you who haven't seen this movie yet, there are major spoilers ahead. If you wish to see this movie for yourself, without having anything spoiled for you, please click off the video now. Now, without further ado, let's get into it. The story begins with a couple of truck drivers disguised as halfway recognizable celebrities trying to figure out who would win in a head-on collision between a deer and a ram. And while the ram's ramming speed wins out, it loses part of its payload of slurm, which finds its way downriver in the nest of a couple of unassuming water dogs. We then meet a cast of unique, charming, and lovable sorority girls channeling their inner Ash Williams by driving as far into the boonies as they can manage to get away from the smelly cooties their boyfriends keep giving them. The first thing they do upon arriving is meeting the neighbor next door, at which point the three women display the entire spectrum of a 12-year-old's emotions. That, of course, being small talk, dead silence, and dick-waving. After taking a minute to establish all 2 dimensions of these characters, they decide to go out for some leech treatment in the lake. While they're doing that, they also investigate a beaver dam, arguing about why beaver piss is most definitely colored green, before being spotted by a bear. The 3 are saved by Kiefer Sutherland's redneck cousin, whose charming banter and glowing compliments convince the ladies to completely abandon swimming for the day. Later that night, the ladies further devolve into the 12-year-old hive mind with some bottom-of-the-barrel beer and a game of Would You Rather, which ends when their sausage fest of SOs crashes the party. Our frisky heroes then take part in a Pops-powered rodeo of blood, sweat, and things that drive me to tears. One of the girls goes to the shower to have a much-needed argument with herself about her cheating ex, who decided to show up for some reason. We then have our first encounter with one of the undead furry horde. She runs through the house screaming about how beavers are big up close, thus attracting the attention of her other 5 cabin sharers who I hesitate to call friends. They storm the bathroom only to find nothing there, conveniently setting up the jump scare of the beaver coming out of the cabinet. They proceed to give that beaver a little slap on the wrist for its shenanigans before throwing him outside. The next morning, the group exhibit Einsteinian levels of logic by deciding to go for a swim. While some of the group are discussing the lovely acts they carried out behind their lovers' backs, the beavers attack. Most of the group get cornered on a raft, and in order to escape the all-natural tree trimmers, one of the people throws the pet dog into the water as bait, thus eliminating any hang-ups about hating these pricks and also starting the countdown to their violent and admittedly satisfying deaths. The token blonde girl gets to the house before everyone else and is surprised by the return of the naughty beaver from last night. The rest of her, let's just call them acquaintances, get back to the house in time to give said beaver a more stern talking to about its behavior. At this point, the human drama beans get spilled when it is revealed people are sleeping with each other behind other people's backs. The beavers, like any good peanut gallery, decide to show up banging on the walls and screeching, reminding the humans that nature doesn't give a flying fart. One of the humans got his foot bit off during the last swimming session, so the gang naturally splits up to look for clues while the beavers get bored and decide to make a snack out of the neighbors. The half of the crew driving to the hospital gets stopped by some high-quality beaver carpentry in the middle of the road, and as the driving crew tries to get around it, the beavers drop their roof on one of the humans' heads, killing him dead. The other two get saved by the creeper hunter from before. Meanwhile, the group back at the cabin is showing off MMA levels of fighting skill against the beaver horde when the hunter shows up with the driving crew, but since the house is sealed up tighter than the pickle jar at the back of your fridge now, they have to run to the neighbor's house. They make it to the house courtesy of the hunter being in the top 1% of Duck Hunter players and try to hide out inside, only for the now undead neighbors and our footless friend to turn into the most nightmare-inducing abominations you've ever seen, killing the hunter and forcing the last living human girl trash tucker thing to take a leap of faith out the window. Meanwhile, back at the house, the token blonde girl completes a transformation into a beautiful bastardized beaver beast, awakening her friends who decided to go to sleep for some reason. The two remaining cabin peeps retreat to the bathroom as the beavers start playing whack-a-mole with the floorboards. The two strip down like the good hormonal college kids we know they are, in order to bite check each other. As the star-crossed lovers begin to consummate their survival, though, the blonde beaver beast crashes through the floor and proceeds to... how do I put this lightly? Separate man from member. But this is the guy who killed the dog earlier, so honestly, good riddance. The woman who leaped out the window earlier comes crashing through the cabin in a truck, saving the last human woman person before the cabin burns to the ground courtesy of one of the Zombeavers making out with an electrical socket for some reason. After escaping the locals, which now include a zombified, let's just call it bearver, the two girls face off, with the cabin girl holding the window girl at gunpoint, convinced that the scrapes from her window jump are bite marks. But it is revealed that it was cabin girl who had really been bitten, which leads to window girl dismembering her with an axe. In the final moments of the movie, Window Girl, the final survivor, returns to civilization, only for the celebrity cameos from the start of the movie to play a game of Ram versus... You know what, I don't actually have a joke for this. Window Girl gets hit by a truck and the screen goes to the credits. Honestly, I'm not really sure what to say about this movie, because by design, this isn't an experience that gives you much to work with. The movie is just as dumb as its title implies, but it's that commitment to its garbage execution that makes it occasionally charming in the way only half-baked and half-witted horror movies can be. This is one of those movies where the people involved are smart enough to realize the absurdity of their situation, but far too dumb to effectively do anything about it. The dialogue for the first half of the movie goes all in on reminding you of things a preteen child would say to try and sound cool at school. Curse words and gross-out jokes are the stage setters for making sure you pay attention long enough to get to the tagline of the movie. The absolutely glorious delivery of lines like, "They're out of toilet paper, I had to use my hands," or the entire exchange between the three girls and the hunter make damn sure that you can't look away from the stupidity even if you wanted to. Example.
Turn that music off, Mary.
You seriously like this? You seriously don't?
Come here, don't listen.
I can't believe I'm friends with people who have no taste in music.
I'm sorry, can you run that by me one more time? Guys, honest to God, I didn't edit that in. That was, in fact, the makers of this movie, deadass dropping the MLG horn. But hey, if you weren't sure what I was trying to say about dialogue and shit before, you probably do now. The actors actually put out some very solid performances, assuming the goal of said performances is making you want to slap them in the face with a brick. You may have noticed I didn't bother to use anyone's names in the synopsis, and there's a good reason for that. The performances, for the most part, fall into two camps. The one that is trying to pop blood vessels in people's faces because of how unnecessarily dickish they are, and the one that is composed entirely of wood. Honestly, it's no wonder the beavers are coming after them. I'll tell you this though, when the dollar store beaver props and the generic animal sound effects show up, whew, this movie really starts going places. The cheesiness in the second half of the movie is downright glorious to behold. Whether it be the scene where varsity football guy literally gets crushed by a falling tree, the hunter somehow swatting the beavers out of the air with supernatural levels of marksmanship, or the girls trying to stab the beavers through the window like they're handling a shake-weight pro, these mofos go absolutely all in on making this movie as ridiculous as humanly possible. Which brings us to the next point. Costumes, makeup, and prosthetics. Now I said earlier that the beavers look like oversized dollar store plushies being controlled by pull strings, and I stand by that statement, even though it suits the movie pretty well. That and the thickened ketchup and turkey bits they use for the gore effects really makes scenes like a zombeavered human holding a hunter up in the air like he's about to deliver some WWE smackdown while he's eating his face truly a sight to behold. Which brings me to the crown jewel of this movie. The human turned zombie turned beaver costumes. If you thought you were gonna watch the bite victims turn into regular old boring zombies, oh well, you have got another thing coming. You can tell whoever designed the costume for the blonde girl had a goddamn field day. I mean, this girl literally grows teeth the size of her head, and then gets a beaver tail attached to her that's the size of her. With all that power, she's also able to steal the entire movie when she crashes through the floor and bites the ween off her dog-killing, cheating ex-boyfriend. And the fact they actually took the time to make a Zombeaver, you can bet your top dollar that there is some serious sequel material on the horizon. Also, if you end up watching the end credits for some reason, you'll be treated to Frank Sinatra popping in to literally sing out a synopsis of the movie. The only reason I bring that up is because the singing is far better than it has any right to be, and it is a nice cop-out for anyone who might not have the willpower to watch the movie in its entirety. Who knows? That song might even be available for download. Ever the more profit to be made. The final rating for this Canadian invasion is 4 out of 10. It's everything you can reasonably expect from a B-movie about zombified beavers, albeit with a little extra fluff. As long as you don't go into this movie expecting it to be Oscar bait, or bearing any semblance of logic whatsoever. Also, maybe just skip the first half of the movie entirely, and you'll find this gem-encrusted turd to be a perfect one-and-done film for your inner Netflix binger. I cannot, in good conscience, however, give it a passing grade. Like, you killed the frickin' dog, man. Like, come on. Listen close, writing peoples. I don't care if there is a literal nuke going off, flattening everything in sight. If you have a doggo on sight, they will walk off into the Fallout sunset happily ever after, or so help me God.
And that will be it for today. Thank you all for stopping by. If for whatever reason you enjoyed what you saw today, consider sticking around, maybe leaving a like or subscribing if you wish. And if you have any recommendations for movies you want to see reviewed in the future, be sure to drop those down in the comments. There's plenty more to come, so if that's something you care about, I'll see you when I see you.